Hi, with you Abdel Bari al-Badri, as pronounced in Arabic, or Bari Badri as I prefer, from the Ahliya Governorate Egypt. This video may be the most important in the COVID-19 era. Today, I will talk about a possibility that may make a significant change in our dealing with COVID-19. The possibility is simple, only needs quick and easy studies. The possibility is COVID-19 infection is opportunistic, secondary to a nutritional or a metabolic disorder, or secondary infectious complication. For the non-specialist person, what does this sentence mean? What does an opportunistic infection secondary to a nutritional or metabolic disorder mean? Opportunistic infection secondary to some sort of metabolic or nutritional disorders means infection does not occur unless in the conditions of having these disorders. In other words, the virus per se is not enough to cause the disease. Malnutrition or metabolic disorders must exist first. This possibility may be the first good news since the pandemic of COVID-19 started. Why? This theory explains a lot, including why some of the same families living under the same circumstances get the infection and the rest don't, and why countries like the USA have high ratio in spite of high medical care and good vaccination programs. This is from one side. On the other side, this assuming allows directing the efforts of protection and vaccination to the susceptible groups. This possibility may be the first step to getting rid of the pandemic and bringing our everyday lives back. As we will see sooner, the picture is obvious and simple to the specialist and the non-specialist. Precautions based on it are healthy ones. The researches are simple and not complicated. The result in both precautions and researches will be charming. The possibility is logical in the light of the following notices. That's all. Let us begin this video. While preparing a vital subject that might be something especially in the nutrition field, there is much reading of many articles and papers and watching many videos discussing the concern. These efforts led to another view that might be a solution to our recent dilemma, COVID-19. Trying to be brief, the selection of new conditions to explore and explain rapidly is the option. The links to these conditions are present below the video for further and sophisticated readings. The first notice is COVID-19 treatment and preventive protocols. The medical teams use many supplements, minerals, and vitamins in treatment and protection. In COVID-19 control, the aim is to enhance the immune system of the human body through various mechanisms. These micronutrient, minerals, and vitamins have many functions in the human body, besides immune system supports and many other therapeutic uses. These include vitamin D, vitamin B1, zinc, and vitamin C. The interesting in this supplement is their usage in controlling metabolic syndrome, the medical term for a combination of diabetes, high blood pressure, and obesity. They have rules in managing cases of insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is when muscles, fat, and liver cells don't respond well to insulin. So taking up glucose from your blood is not easy. The descriptions used are those of Google to the two conditions. The second notice during the researches was two studies talking about cod liver oil. One searched its influence on COVID-19 prevention. The other talked about its use during the first year of life and its association with a lower risk of childhood onset type 1 diabetes. Cod liver oil contains omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin E, vitamin A, and vitamin D. All of these components have a role in controlling cases of metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance. By the way, the exact pathophysiology of metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance, how the human body works in these abnormal states, is not clear. The most accepted hypothesis to describe the pathophysiology of metabolic syndrome is insulin resistance. Mentioning this point here for two reasons. The first will appear later in the solutions directed to the ordinary person, and the second will be transparent in the following video in the detail. Also, omega-3 fatty acids usage may help in a healthy ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids. Typical omega-6 to omega-3 ratios for pre-industrial population ranged from 4:1 to 1:4. The ratio today is about 16:1. These fatty acids are biologically active, not to be stored or burned for energy, and have many important roles on some processes like blood clotting and inflammation. However, omega-6 fatty acids and omega-3 fatty acids don't have the same actions. Omega-6 fatty acids are pro-inflammatory, meaning they favor inflammation, while omega-3 fatty acids are anti-inflammatory. Inflammations are essential for life. They help in the protection from infection and injury. However, on the other side, they cause severe damage and contribute to the disease when they are chronic or excessive. Chronic inflammation may be one of the leading causes of the most modern diseases, as metabolic syndrome, heart disease, diabetes, arthritis, Alzheimer, and many types of cancer. A diet high in omega-6 fatty acids but low in omega-3 fatty acids increases inflammation. In contrast, a diet that includes a balanced amount reduces inflammation. So, who follow a Western diet are typically overeating omega-6 fatty acids relative to omega-3 fatty acids and are more vulnerable to these modern diseases. Before leaving this point, the Western pattern diet, as defined on Wikipedia, is a modern dietary pattern that includes high intakes of red meats, processed meats, prepackaged foods, butter, candy, sweets, fried foods, conventionally raised animal products, high-fat dairy products, eggs, refined grains, potatoes, corn, and high-fructose corn syrup and high-sugar drinks. There are low intakes of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, pasteurized animal products, fish, nuts, and seeds. The third notice is a study linking obesity and the severity of infection with COVID-19. This study explained why the risk of morbidity and mortality of people with obesity is high. The pathogen of COVID-19 enters into the cell through binding to a receptor. This receptor is a regulator of two contrary pathways in the renin-angiotensin system. Renin-angiotensin system is a hormone system that regulates blood pressure and fluid. The cellular entry process of the pathogen of COVID-19 downregulates one of these two pathways, raises angiotensin II, and enhances the inflammatory pathway. This step has opposing effects to the protective another path. This step is likely to be the cause of morbidity and mortality in patients with COVID-19 infection. Obesity, risk factor for more severe COVID-19 disease, may contribute more considerable amounts of angiotensin II in the circulation and consequently unopposed inflammatory pathway functioning. Simply, obesity is a factor for the severity of COVID-19 disease. The severity is due to its influence on the function of an X in the cell membrane. For the details of this study, see the sources. Obesity may be a part of malnutrition, metabolic syndrome, or other diseases. For other causes of obesity, see the sources. The first three notices may or may not be in the mind of many, whether they are specialists or not, but the next one probably not. The fourth notice, let us look at some picture items through the following tables and their numbers in the USA and other selected countries for demonstration. Making these tables depends on the data on coronavirus cases worldometer. The date was the 17th of September 2021. Its link is in the sources. Making many tables using the calculator only is easy. Let us explain those figures. States population is equivalent to 4.25% of total world population. Suppose there are no strong variants between the USA and the rest of the world. In that case, numbers of COVID-19 in the USA will be relatively similar, meaning 4.25% of the world's total numbers. Two strong positive variants must make this number much less than the rest of the world. These are good medical care and added to it vital vaccination programs. You can list another positive variants that make the numbers much less than the rest of the world. The following table showing some shocking numbers. All ratios are high. Ratios of the cases are high despite protective measures and vaccination programs. Ratios of deaths, active cases, and serious critical cases are very high in the presence of good or excellent medical care. Are these high percentages due to the accuracy of the statistics in the USA? It is not easy with these high percentages and ratios. Similar statistics are present in England, 0.87% of the world population, and France, 0.84% of the world populations. Those share the USA the same positive variants that must make these percentages much lower. All the statistics reveal a high ratio, except the new death ratio is below the average in the France. France has some tiny ratios. What is the negative variance that at the first equalizes the influences of the positive variance and then multiplies the ratio many times more than those of the rest of the world? Only shared feature between these countries that may be the risk factor or the cause in this situation is a similar pattern of diet, a Western diet. France has some Gini ratios. Is that due to some variations in the pattern of the diet in comparison with the first two countries? A simple question: is that possible to think of anything else? Another comparison between the USA and India. India population is equivalent to 17.7% of the total world population, will give an excellent dimension to the condition. The statistics show significant decreases down to half regarding the world average, nearly on all of them, and down to the tithes regarding the active cases. Compared with the USA, the statistics show dramatic decreases, especially in active cases, more than 1 to 210. On the contrary, despite the possible presence of negative variants that may increase COVID-19 infection in India, the facts in the table reveals that all numbers are decreased compared to the world averages. There are sharp decreases in all figures in contrast with the USA. In Table 1 and Table 2, the comparison reveals the presence of a risk factor or a cause that masking the effect of positive variance on different figures of COVID-19 infection, and after that multiplies the statistics many times. On the contrary, in Table 3, the comparison reveals a risk factor or a cause that conceals the effect of harmful variants in India on different figures of COVID-19 infection. It's also after that concealing decreases the statistics many times than the world averages. The risk factor may be an environmental factor, for example, characteristics, circumstances, and the behavior of individuals, events, natural, social, economic phenomena. Is the secret in the pattern of diet and its influence on metabolic disorders? Is it possible to think of another risk factor or cause? This point needs an urgent investigation and urgent studies. We are probably missing a metabolic disorder or metabolic disorders, either existing alone or as a part of another metabolic disorder or malnutrition. In COVID-19 condition, under the influence of this metabolic disorder or these metabolic disorders, there are alterations in the normal functions of the cell membrane that facilitate the infection. According to the degree of these alterations, they make it more vulnerable to the virus, with or without severe consequences. This explanation is the only logical one. Returning to Table 3, regarding active case ratio between the USA and India, 250 to 1. There are many questions. Is this high ratio due to the accumulation of daily new cases? Is this accumulation due to longevity of time needed for correction of underlying metabolic causes by using the supplements rather than immune system strengthening effects of these supplements to overcome COVID-19 infection? Is this longevity correlating to the severity of the existing disorder and accompanying chronic diseases? If the case are uncorrectable due to the severity of the cause and accompanying disease, which may be secondary to these metabolic causes, is this uncorrectability responsible for the high critical cases ratio between the USA and India, more than 11:1, and also the high new death ratio, more than 26:1, rather than the aggressiveness of the virus, meaning it is an opportunistic virus? This question needs rapid and correct answers, especially in the USA and related countries with high mortality ratios. If the picture is correct, we are looking for a solution among the wrong groups in an appropriate manner, in the wrong ways. Searches must be: first, studying persons on healthy natural foods instead of the patients. Second, monitoring changes that accompany their deviation away from the healthy manner accompanying their infection by the virus, rather than different studies among patients with chronic diseases, keeping in mind that most of them have many alterations in their cell membrane functions, and a percentage of them secondary to metabolic syndrome. This meaning a big dilemma and many variables with possible misleading results. Third, observing the influence of this deviation on cell membrane, rather than the efficiency of different vaccination programs and protective measures. The exact problem is not easy to identify or define. The cause is also if we spend the time studying patients with chronic diseases. If the problem is a nutritional one, it will solve many issues, including transportation among countries. Topics include avoiding many scandals between countries classified as red zones, as in the Brazil during its football game with Argentina. It is obvious it is an infectious disease, infecting some, affecting a few of them, badly hurting up to killing them. The question now is it randomly picking its victims, or is it an opportunistic secondary to a particular metabolic disorder, whether known one, unknown one, an early stage of known one? For ordinary person, until this condition is evident, continuing vaccination programs and following protective measures are mandatory, plus healthy food only. As the statistics in the table 1 reveals, healthy food only is a necessity because of high ratio as regard infection is present in the USA despite strong vaccination programs and protective measures. High ratios of active cases, critical cases, and deaths are dominant in the USA despite excellent medical care. So healthy foods, which are your guardian angel, are homemade, even bread and cheese if it's possible, freshly prepared, natural food only, no GMO. Help is mandatory. Watching some videos and reading a few articles are not enough. It is a big multi-sided science. Healthy foods may differ from one to another according to the health status of each one. Why local nutritionists? Hippocrates, the father of medicine, laid down a historical scientific base for more than 5,000 years, saying, "Let your food be your medicine, and treat every sick person with the planet of his hand, for it will be brought for his recovery." Besides that, there are local inherited foods traditions in different parts of the world. The only one who is capable of evaluating their values in the local diet is the local nutritionists. It is essential not to neglect these traditions. The strange and different traditional foods remedy for controlling the COVID-19 infection across the whole world is their different mechanisms for correcting metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance. That's another reason why local nutritionist is essential for any healthy food regimen. Is this the time for local nutritionists' role in controlling the COVID-19 infection? Is that the correct arrangement of the puzzle? Try to make natural, homemade, fresh foods a trend or global campaign. Some products may help in this campaign. Share these campaigns with friends or followers. It is here continuing the point of the metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance. The percentage among adults in the USA is nearly 25%. Return to the figures in the previous tables and compare. The easiest way to handle and avoid metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance is through a triad of resistant exercise, healthy foods, and intermittent fasting. As regards resistance exercise, ask your physiotherapist. As regarding healthy foods and intermittent fasting, ask the nutritionist. For the specialists, one suggestive study may help in this approach. Sports teams are homogeneous groups under programs of nutrition designed for better performance of the player. They are fortunately present in every country, so they are easily investigated. The teams have many fans following their news everywhere. So besides the study, the player can also help in the previous campaign. There are some degrees of both, lacking social distance between the players and exposure to infection due to multiple traveling inside and outside countries, plus campaigns and open playing fields surrounded by crowds. These situations are accompanied by decreased numbers of infections and easily recovery regardless of the country. This decrease and easy recovery may be due to lacking metabolic disorder rather than good immunity. The notice of decreased occurrence of infection and the easy, rapid recovery from it without severe sequelae is notable. Some may say that the players are young with good immunity and no argue about that. However, the possibility of the presence or absence of other causes still exists. In cases of infection, the cause may be some disturbance in the nutritional program, rather than temporary decrease in immunity. Fortunately, studies can trace and analyze that, as these teams has recorded data about these circumstances. the points of occurrence of infection, and available nutritional data surrounding them, not lacking social distance, may reveal a risk factor. So, there are possibilities of good positive result from the studies. Also, the immunoglobulin profile of the players as regard COVID-19 may be helpful. Finally, these groups of players seem to be free from infection. Is that due to the correct pattern of nutrition? Is their infection an opportunistic secondary to metabolic disorders occasionally occurring among them when they disobey the nutritionist orders? Is their rapid recovery without complication due to the immediate correction of their diet disorders? These questions are fundamental to be investigated thoroughly. The matter is necessary for the USA, England, and France to stop community health and economic leaks. These studies may not only save patients' lives, but also will save unaccountable costs. These costs include hospitalization and employees out of duty, as the severity of infection will be at least low with fewer harmful sequelae. This study may bring our everyday life back. Last words for both the specialists and the non-specialists. If this theory is right, what are we doing now? We are doing two things. The first, masking the causes or the cause by vaccination and protective measures. The second, delaying the matter to the next pandemic. Please don't delay the confrontation. Finally, the following video may be after about 2 months, and it will be a significant, informative one in nutrition for both healthy and diseased persons. If you liked this video and agreed with its content, share it with your friends and followers. As Google and YouTube ads consider my site and channel contain sensitive material as they discuss a condition, COVID-19, during its crisis, preventing their ad campaigns. If you want to know the new subjects on my site and channel, subscribe to this video, as I link both on my videos on YouTube. Thank you.